Right, welcome again in another tutorial of the topic differentiations. So in this tutorial we're going to see application of differentiations to some practical problems. So in the previous tutorial we studied the concept of a maximum and minimum value, where when you have a function y equals to fx, if you derive this function, okay, the value of x in this derivative that gives 0 will provide the maximum and minimum value of this function, okay? But how do you determine that it is maximum or minimum? Tuseme unatafuta second derivative. So second derivative ikiwa positive, basi jibu lako ni minimum, okay? Lakini ikiwa negative, basi jibu lako ni maximum. Sasa hapa we have only one variables. Tutakavyokuwa tuna derive practical problems, tutaona kwamba unapata a function y afu ndani kuna variable mbili. Sasa utakachofanya ni eliminate variable zingine zote ibaki moja tu ndo uweze kuderive, okay? So let's now use this concept, okay, to solve a practical problem. For example, this. It says a piece of wire, kwa hiyo tuna wire huu hapa. Sawa, which forms the circumference of a cycle of 0.12 meter radius. Maana kuna mtu ameukunja huu wire mpaka utengeneze cycle, okay? Na hiyo cycle sasa radius yake ni 0.12 meters. Is cut. Muni mwingine akaja kaukata kwa vipande viwili, cha kwanza na cha pili, okay? Na hivi vipande viwili vikawa bent so as to form two new cycles. So we have the first cycle and the second cycle. Kwa the first cycle itakuwa na radius R1, the second itakuwa na radius R2, okay? Find the radius of each cycle. Make find R1 and R2 so that the sum of the areas, make area huu ni A1, area huu ni A2. Manake sum of the areas 18 is sasa na A1 plus A2 is small as possible, manake is minimum, okay? So find their radiuses such that the sum of the areas is minimum. So let's get to work. Ile waya kabla haijakatwa ilivyokunjwa ilitengeneza cycle. Ile cycle circumference yake ni 2 pi r, ambapo hiyo r ni 0.12 meters, okay? Ile waya baada ya kukatwa ikatengeneza cycle mbili. Kila cycle ina circumference yake. Ya kwanza circumference yake itakuwa 2 pi r1 na ile cycle ya pili circumference yake itakuwa ni 2 pi r2. So now the total, ukichukua circumference ya huyu na jumlisha ya huyu utapata circumference ya wire kabla haijakatwa, kwa sababu circumference is just the length of the wire. So ni sana ukichukua umechukua length ya kipande hichi jumlisha length ya kipande hichi ukapata total length. So my C now is just C1 plus C2. So my C is 2 pi r, okay? So my C1 is 2 pi r1 and my C2 is 2 pi r2. So I find that 2 pi r now is just 2 pi, factor it, r1 plus r2. So r is equal to r1 plus r2. But what is r? R is 0.12 meters. So 0.12 is equal to R1 plus R2, it's meters. So R2 now is also equal to 0.12 minus R1. Okay? I can, R1 naweza nikaileta tu kuikawa hivyo. Sasa swali nataka total area iwe minimum, okay? Kwa hiyo sasa vile vipande viwili, cha kwanza area yake itakuwa ni pi R1 squared, okay? Hiyo formula area pi R squared. Na kile cha pili area yake itakuwa ni pi r2 squared. Manake total area itakuwa ni sasa na pi r1 squared plus pi r2 squared. So nataka area iwe minimum, manake I have to differentiate area with respect to radius, but we have two radiuses. We have r1 and r2. I need to remove one, okay? Remember r2 is equal to 0.12 minus r1, okay? So instead of R2 here, I'll just put this one. So AT now is just equal to pi R1 squared plus pi times 0.12 minus R1 squared. So now my total area now is just equal to pi r1 squared plus pi. So when I square this now, it's just 0.0144 minus 0.24 plus r1 squared. This is 24 r1. So my total area now, okay, is just pi r1 squared plus 0.0144 pi minus 0.24 pi r1 plus pi r1 squared. So this and this, they look alike. So finally, my total area is just 2 pi r1 squared minus 0.24 pi r1 plus 0.0144 pi. This is my total area. So now, I have to differentiate this with respect to radius, okay? And equate to 0. Then the radius that is obtained after this is the one that will give either a minimum value or a maximum value. So remember, my total area is 2 pi r1 squared minus 0.24 pi r1 plus 0.0144 pi. So I mean, if I differentiate this now with respect to r1, it means I just differentiate this whole thing. 2 pi r1 squared minus 0.24 pi r1 plus 0.0144 pi. Like that. So I mean, derivative of polynomial function, I derive kimoja baada ya kingine. So my dat now, dr1 is just going to be equal to, nikimderive huyu hapa, okay, hii is constant, hii 2 pi ni constant na itoa nchokona derive huyu. This is like x power n. So the answer should be n xn minus 1. So the answer is 2r1. So 2r1 times 2 pi, you get 4 pi r1. Nikimdifferentiate huyu, napata 1, okay? r1. Napata 1, so nabaki na 0.24 pi. This one now is constant. So now this derivative now this is constant, kwa hiyo kiderive napata 0, okay? This derivative now should be equal to 0 ili niweze kudetermine the radius for which I will obtain the minimum or maximum area. So my 4 pi r1 minus 0.24 pi should be equal to 0. So this just means 4 pi r1 is just equal to 0.24 pi. So if I divide by 4 pi both sides, I found out that r1, pi and pi go, this is just 0.06. r1 should be 0.06 for at to be either maximum or minimum. So in order to determine that 0.06, will it give either a minimum value or a maximum value, I'm going to differentiate again. I'm going to look for this, the second derivative. So remember now. Remember that dat dr1 was equal to 4 pi r1 minus 0.24 pi. So if I derive this for the second time, it means I just differentiate this derivative with respect to r1. This one. So now, my second derivative now, it's going to be equal to, so I derive this one, it's 1, okay? I'm going to get 4 pi. This is constant, it's just 0, so it's just 4 pi. So 4 pi now is positive, okay? And hakuna r1, okay? Kwa hiyo bila shaka hile 0.06 itatupa nini? Itatupa the most minimum total area, okay? Most minimum total area. Lakini au kwa lugha nyingine nasema the total area as small as possible, kama ilivyoulizwa kwenye swali. Just check out the question. The question ilikuwa nataka tupate radius ya zile cycle mbili ndogo ambayo itatusababisha tupate area ambayo ni ndogo kuliko zote. So tumeshajua r1 ikiwa ni 0.06 na tutapata total area ambayo ni ndogo kuliko zote. Lakini hiyo ni r1 tu. What about r2? So remember r2 was equal to 0.12 minus r1. So r2 sasa, it means r1 ikiwa 0.06, r2 na yenyewe itakuwa 0.06. 6. Kwa hiyo ili kupata total area ambayo ni ndogo sana, very minimum, it means each of those 2 cycles formed should have a radius of 0.06 meter. So that is mfano mmoja tu kuhusu application of differentiation to some practical problems. See you in the next tutorial where we may solve another example.